I'm a professional photographer and I take a lot of photos for my clients, and unfortunately that means that my personal photos often get neglected. In the past, my process was to bring all of my photos into Lightroom and process them that way, and as quick as I've become over the years in using Lightroom, it's still quite time intensive, so I needed to find a quicker solution, and thankfully I have found it, and that's what I want to share with you guys today. I've got a piece of software that makes photo editing super simple and a lot of fun at the same time as well. So let's dive into the computer and I'll show it to you. The first thing we're going to do is open up Luminar AI. So I double click on that and the program launches, and this is version 1.3, and I've been told that it's been sped up significantly, and sure enough, there it is. These 3 photos are 3 photos that I recently worked on for a professional project and my most recent architectural photography video. And so if I show you the before and after just by clicking this eye tool here, the difference is subtle, but I've introduced the sky, and also Luminar has matched the color tonality, the color hues to that sky as well, and I've just created just a little bit more contrast and pop to the actual architecture itself as well. And I did that literally in a couple of minutes, and the sky was brought in with the AI. I didn't have to worry about any masking. So in terms of whether or not Luminar can grow with you as your skill set improves, it is most definitely a professional quality product. This is very much an integral part of my tool set nowadays, so I really like it. But what I want to do in this video is show the new photographers, those new to photo editing, new to Luminar AI, exactly how I use this program for my own personal photos now, because I can use it so much quicker to get the results I want than tools like Lightroom. So here we go. What we're going to do is tell Luminar where your photos are. So we add a folder, and you can either select a folder that you want to import into Luminar to start working on, or what I'd recommend is actually just go to the root, the main folder that contains all of your photos. But for this instance, all I'm going to do is just show you one catalog, and that is, or one folder, and that's of my daughter riding a horse down at the local riding club. So I select that. I'm not sure what's inappropriate, but we won't be opening that on my video. Oh, I'm intrigued to know what's in there now. Anyway, sure enough, Luminar now loads in this folder, and you can see it here, Sefton riding, and there's the very first photo of all the sheep. If I press G, that will take me to the grid view, and just like that, we've got access to all of these photos straight away. And this is so quick to actually see the photos, which I really love. When you open up photos in Lightroom, if you've ever used that, you actually have to import the photos and actually render previews. So I'm not really sure what that's all about, but in Luminar, it's nice and quick, which I really like. There are quite a few things I really enjoy about Luminar, but if I open up just say one photo, we've got this one here of my daughter, and it's just loaded in. And if we come over to templates, is a great place to start for newbies to the photo editing. It's really clever. The AI looks at the photo, it realizes it's a portrait, and so here you go. The very first thing it's recommending is a set of edits based in the elegant portraiture section. And if you scroll along here, we've got easy portraits as well. So if you wanted to just use one of these presets, for example, you can just click on one of these, see what effect you want. So this is a faded look. You can go for a vignette darkening around the corner. You can darken it off with a low key. We could have tack sharp. And if we zoom in, let's just see whether Luminar has done a tack sharp job. You can see in the top left, see the blue that just fades over the Luminar logo? That is basically Luminar doing a little bit of calculation behind the scenes to run its AI to get the photo looking at its best, basically. So here's our before, here's our after. It's really subtle, but it definitely is sharper and giving it a little bit more pop as well. So it's really easy to get better results in Luminar just with one click. I mean, look, before and after, that's a big improvement just with one little click. With any of these templates that you apply, you can always fade the amount off as well, and you're not just limited to using portrait templates on portraits, what you could do is come in and we could even put a sunset effect on there if we wanted to. So here's Dream Film, Hyperdrive. These ones are a little bit more crazy, but you know, from here to here, just with one click, you can really create something a bit more dramatic if you want to. But I just want to make a slightly different point here, and that is that you can use an effect, but you don't have to use it at its full intensity. So for example, Hyperdrive, oh no, that's a bit much, you know, it's just a little bit crazy orange nuclear. But let's suppose that you actually like the effect. We can grab this little slider in the bottom right hand corner, and we can go from none of the effect, and we can increase it to a point that we feel happy with. So rather than being at 100, we could sit it somewhere around sort of like 50-60%. So before, after. And used with a more subtle application, it might suddenly go from something that looks crazy and way over the top to something that's quite usable. But I like to dig into the actual editing tools, and I like to create my own set of presets or recipes. Luminar calls them templates. Call them what you will, but I like to create my own. So what we can do is come down here to these little 3 dots and just reset the adjustments. So we're back to the beginning, and we can see that this is a very underexposed photo. It's lacking quite a lot of life, really. So if we come to the edit section, I'm going to show you one tool and one tool only that you need. And I have so much faith in this that I haven't tried this yet on this photo. This is the first time I'm editing these, but this Accent AI slider is insane. It can improve contrast, improve color saturation, improve your exposure. It can fix all manner of sins. And if you are a new photographer, you're more likely to be making a few mistakes along the way. And so this one slider, Accent AI, if I bring this up, look at this. Right, let's turn that off and turn it on. Right, just that one slider has made a massive improvement to that photo, right? So you don't really need to know too much about all of these different tools and what they do. They're all really easy to use. Like, they basically grab it and slide it. You know, this is the Structure AI tool, and this is very clever. It's Structure AI, and the AI part of it says, okay, I want to increase contrast, local contrast within things in the photo, but it doesn't touch human faces, skin, things like that, because you don't really want a high level of local contrast being applied to a model, to a human. It just doesn't look good. So if we turn that off and we turn that on, it's bringing out all that detail behind, which you may or may not want. I'm just doing this for demonstrative purposes, but it's leaving my daughter alone. And just like some dodgy boy coming knocking on the front door, I want my daughter left alone. So that's a cool tool, right? If you feel that you want to increase the saturation in your photos, you've got the saturation slider that you can play with. If you want to reduce the saturation, you've also got that option. So you could go for a much more muted or vintage kind of look really easily. You've also got the option to do some really nice sharpening with Luminar AI. So if I zoom into her eyes and her face here, if I grab the sharpen slider and I push it way too much, push it all the way to 100, you can see just about every single hair going on. Now, it's a little bit too over sharpened in my opinion, but just to show you that that sharpening is there. So if something needs a little bit of a helping hand, so let's suppose her t-shirt here, you really want to see all the detail in the fabric. I don't know why you would, but let's suppose you do. We turn that off and we turn it on. Look at the detail, look at the pop suddenly come into all the stars and the fabric. It's really nice. So the option to do that is there, and that's just really great. Another great tool that I really like to use is the vignette tool, and that is just a darkening of the edges, either darkening or brightening. And basically by darkening the edges, you're helping to draw your viewer's attention to the center of the frame. And more often than not, the thing that you want people to look at is in the center of the frame or close to it. But the great thing is, if they're not in the center of the frame, and I'm going to darken this down just for dramatic purposes so we can see what's going on. Let's suppose it's the truck in the background we want people to focus on. we can actually choose our subject, and we could just click on the truck, and all of a sudden our vignette would shift. So in this case, yeah, we want it on my daughter, but you could just say, hey, look at the sign down here. So that's a really, really nice feature that not many other photo editing applications have. I would recommend never using this or probably any of the tools at their full extent, but you can just ease some of it in. So then it's subtle, before, after. But let's suppose you're happy with this little recipe of editing and you want to save this as a template that you can apply to every single photo. It's really easy to do. Come down to these little dots here, click save, and then you're going to come up here. And then when you jump back into your template section and come back here, we have my templates, this section here, and the template you just created will be sat at the top there. So you can come in and rename that and call it something more intuitive. So generic edit, for example. So in theory, unlike other photo editors where you can make presets and then apply them to other photographs, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. In theory, what we just did here should work on any photo because the tools we've used are built around AI. So let's just pick a random photo here. So my daughter's off to collect a horse and put the bridle on it. I think that's the word. I'm not a horsey person, so don't quote me on that. I know photography, not horses. So we're going to take this photo, and if we come into templates and we click generic edit, just like that, Luminar has applied the changes that we made previously. So here was our before, here's our after. Before, after. Now you may feel that this is just a little bit too much, and I think this is over processed, but that's basically because I put those tools on, I think the Accent AI at 100%, which is normally far too much. So what we can do though is actually just bring the effect down. So like I say, we don't need to have 100%, we could have somewhere in between. Let's go for 50%. So here's our before, here's our after, nice improvement. And if I jump back to our catalogue again, we don't need to go in individually to each and every photo. What we could do is press Control A or Option A on the Mac, and that's going to select all photos. We can now right click and come to our adjustments and just synchronize those adjustments. Luminar says it's processing, and now it's applied those changes to every single photo. It may take a while just for the thumbnails to update, but as these pop in, they should have that same adjustment that we created applied to them. So let me double click on one of these where my daughter's on the horse holding the pug. You'll normally get a lower res preview just as the photo loads in, because basically Luminar needs to analyze the photo so that it knows what it's doing when it applies the AI. And there we have it. So let's look at our before and our after. Now Luminar thinks it's doing me a favor and just neutralizing this, because when you look at my original, it's quite warm, it's quite orangey in the background, the sun was setting, and I really like that warmth. So although the overall photo is improved, I'm not really liking what it's doing with the background. So let's just jump back into our editing section and see what we can do about that. There's heaps of ways to control color inside of Luminar, but I just want to show you a couple of easy ways. So you can work with the color temperature inside of this light panel, and just by increasing the color temperature, there you go, we've got a nice orange effect back. So let me be extreme, let me push this all the way up there. You know, you could go all that way, or you could come down here and make things look very cool. But I just want to warm things up slightly. We can change the tint so that we're making things more pink or more green. So that's a really easy way to control the overall color balance of your photos. Nice and simple. I was going to keep this video really simple and just show you the absolute basic tools, but there are so many real goodies in here that I just want to show you those as well. The mystical tool, I really like applying this one. Now I'm going to be really heavy-handed and show you this one at full effect, which is normally far too much, but can you see how it's created that dreamlike quality, almost like a glamour photo you might have seen in the 80s. So you might be a little bit like, oh no, I don't really want to use that. But I don't recommend using any of these tools in their full amount. Push it to the full amount though, so you can see what they do. And then you're free just to ease it back to a point it's enhancing your photo, but doing it in a really nice way. If you do a lot of portrait work, there's some AI tools here like Face AI where you can light the face, you can enhance eyes, all things like this. You know, I could come down here to the mouth, and if I wanted to make my daughter's teeth whiter, I can increase that. And how clever is that? I don't need to mask a single thing. Luminar knows exactly where her teeth are. So if I turn this off and you look at her teeth, I'll turn it back on. You see her teeth just get that little bit whiter. So this is some really clever technology that just helps to save you time. So I've done a lot of videos on how to use Luminar AI, and when it first came out, some of the fears that people had was, oh, I don't want AI doing all my editing for me, I want to do it myself, why would I let a machine make decisions on my photos? Well, that's not actually the case. The computer isn't making the decisions, you are. The computer's AI is merely helping you achieve your creative vision, and that's why I like it so much. Anyway, I'm just going to drop that back so I don't want to whiten her teeth up too much. If you're quite into the matte look, which is quite popular on things like Instagram, you can crank that bad boy up and see how that looks. So here's our before, here's our after. You might just want to put a little bit of that in as well. You've got other options to play around with as well, like fading the effect so you can get more of a vintage look. You can increase the contrast as well. What I love is that there's so many options that you can go to if you want to, or if you want to keep things super simple, you can just stick to the amount slider and go, well, I want a lot of it or I want a little of it. And you can just fine tune it to exactly how you want it. One of the absolute best tools, in my opinion, is the mood tool. And the mood tool is one that I normally apply right at the end, and I'll show you what it does. Basically, it gives your photos a color essence. So if I scroll over these here, you will see that the tonality in the photo starts to change. So how cool is that? Just by selecting one of these, we can give our photo a completely different feel. So in this case, I've gone for Santa Barbara. The default state of 30 is actually a really, really nice amount. And normally I don't actually move it from 30, but one thing you can do is push it to 100, and then as you scroll through the different effects, you can get a better feel for exactly what color tonality they're bringing into your photo. So I quite like this Genius one. It's genius. It's just knocking back the colors a little bit and making everything a bit more subtle. So if I take it away and put it on, maybe I'll go back to that first one. Riverside, that's the one we're going to go with. But look, Luminar is fantastic for just having a play around with your photos. It makes photo editing a lot of fun. If you feel like things are just getting a little bit oversaturated again, because we've made a few changes, we can just revisit this color section and just bring the saturation back down just a smidge. I also feel like by introducing the structure AI like we did, we're just making the background just a little bit too crunchy. I've got a nice lens which really drops the background bokeh into that nice creamy haze. Looks gorgeous, so I don't really want to be bringing all that detail back by increasing the structure, but a little bit would be quite nice. So let's bring that back down a little bit. I'm going to bring the accent AI back as well, and that way then we can just crank the overall effect up just a little bit heavier. And now I'm happy with that look. What I'm going to do is once again synchronize that across the whole set of photos. So I can press L on the keyboard and that will take me to the catalog, and I've got a very similar photo on the left of that one, so you can actually see the difference between the two photos that we just created. Or another way to do things is just to look at that before and after, just with the eyeball tool, and I get so much enjoyment. There must be something wrong with me, because I really enjoy just looking at that before and after when I've been working on something. You've also got this slider here, which is really nice as well, just to see that before and after. So I think that's really cool that you can quickly check where you've come from and where you've got to. But if we're happy with that overall look, what we can do again is come to the adjustments, copy them, and with everything selected, we can then just come to adjustments again, and we can paste those adjustments, or we could have used that synchronize option as well. And just like that, Luminar starts going through all of the photos and applying those changes. So if I jump to this photograph here and we look at our before, which is quite cool and quite dark, and our after, we've managed to enhance that lovely evening sunset feel, just with a few sliders that we applied to one photo, and then we synchronized that across a whole set of 232 photos. So now they all have been enhanced from something like this to something like this. And of course, you're free to go in and make further refinements to any photo if you want to. So for example, if I wanted to boost the exposure up a little bit, I could do that. If I want to work with the smart contrast, I could do that too. And I actually recommend that as a really useful workflow technique, that you apply a template that either you have created or one that is shipped with Luminar, and then you come in and you make further adjustments if you need to. So I was actually shooting some pretty difficult stuff straight into the sun, so I'm getting a lot of flare coming through here, but I was actually doing that deliberately, where I was creating this halo effect around her on the horse. So I was deliberately framing her against the darker background so we can see that highlight, but it's very possible that this may need some more contrast added to it. So that's the great thing about this. If you want to add more contrast or make further adjustments, you can. I can come in, grab the smart contrast and crank that all the way up. If I feel that we don't have a true black point in this and I want to introduce one, I've got access to further tools to come in and just really tweak things so that they can finish up exactly how I want them. And because we were shooting into the sun, this already had a very orangey feel to it, and that might be what I want to keep, or I may want to kind of bring the color temperature down to a point where we're starting to get some of those truer colors coming back in. But hopefully you can see just how quickly I can make improvements to my photos. And so for me, with my personal photos, of which I take a lot, as you can see just on one session out with my daughter riding horses, I took 231. So to go from this to this, literally all I did was apply that template that I showed you how to make, and then I've literally tweaked 3 sliders, and there you go. Like you saw before, you know, I've gone from what looked like a very, very washed out and lifeless photo to something that I feel is imbued with a sense of warmth and just has a bit more emotion to this photo. There are many, many more tools that you can look at inside of Luminar, such as the crop tool. It's actually got a smart crop feature built into it as well, but I'm not going to go into all of this stuff in this video. I have many other videos. If you want to get hold of Luminar AI, I have a discount code which is @Sky10, and you can use that at the link below. And I think the software is somewhere around $100. It depends what country you're in and exchange rate and rah, but it's very, very good value for what it offers. So if you do want to go ahead and get that, save yourself a bit of money at the checkout with that @Sky10 discount, and that also helps me out with my channel because I do get a very small commission from the guys at Skylum. So it's all very much appreciated. It's a win-win for everybody. And if you want to learn more about Luminar AI, please subscribe to the channel and ask any questions you like in the comments, because I'm happy to help. So I'm going to leave you with a slideshow of a handful of these photos to show you what you can achieve with an absolute minimum of time investment. And for me, when I photograph as much as I do, that is an absolute godsend. I really enjoy using this software, but for me the biggest boon is the fact that I can get stuff done so quickly. A little while back it kind of got to crisis point with my photos because I just had so many months worth of photos that I didn't have time to edit. And thankfully with Luminar AI, because everything is AI driven and I can use those templates, I've been able to go through months and months of photos very, very quickly and export them to JPEGs that I'm actually happy with. So hopefully this has opened up your eyes to what Luminar AI is capable of, but seriously, I've only just scratched the surface in this video. So if you want to get hold of it, as I say, I've got a discount code which is @Sky10. I've got a link below. Go and get yourself a copy of it. And I have a lot of free training on my channel that's going to help you get up and running with it and also dive a little bit deeper into all these really exciting tools. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if this video has been of use to you, do me a favor, just hit that thumbs up button and that would be awesome. And I haven't made a video for quite a while now because I've been so busy with my professional work. So it's actually a joy to get back in front of you guys and share some stuff with you. So I hope really hope you've enjoyed this. So thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.